New York, the city that never sleeps, where you can have everything: fame, money, power, and still lose it all in one night. Lila Rivera sat quietly in her penthouse apartment, the soft golden light doing little to hide the emptiness in her eyes. She was a successful interior architect, sought after by elite clients for her impeccable taste and fierce independence. But behind the polished smiles and sleek sketches was a heart bruised and barely holding on. Just a month ago, she had ended a 4-year relationship with Nate Collins, a well-known male model, the man she once believed was her forever. But that love turned out to be nothing more than a well-scripted role, directed by Nate himself, and closed with a betrayal that shattered every ounce of trust she had. He had chosen another woman, Serena Lee, his longtime co-model, simply because she gave him what Lila couldn't. Those words cut deeper than any insult. They slashed at her pride, her worth, everything she had worked so hard to build. Since the breakup, Lila buried herself in work. Each design, each 3D render wasn't just a project. It was her form of therapy, a way to hold herself together while the pieces inside her threatened to fall apart. But the harder she tried to forget, the clearer the memories became. The late-night cuddles, the shared Netflix binges, the plans for a future. They haunted her every time she closed her eyes. Tonight, Emma, her best friend, texted her. "Enough. You need a drink. You need air. And you need to come back to life." Lila closed her eyes, pulled out a lipstick from her purse, and sighed. Maybe it was time. Lila hadn't planned on going out tonight. She had already come up with every excuse. Tired, deadlines, not in the mood. But Emma wasn't the type to take no for an answer. She and Zoe showed up at Lila's door with a tight black dress and brand new heels. "Put this on, drink with us, and if you're still miserable afterward, we'll personally tuck you into bed," Emma had said firmly. So Lila surrendered. Bar indigo neon lights bouncing off dark wood floors, bass pulsing so deep you could feel it in your bones. They grabbed a VIP booth tucked away in the back, private enough to laugh loudly, close enough to still feel the beat. Lila wasn't one to drink much, but tonight was different. The first glass warmed her throat. The second loosened her shoulders. By the third, her smile wasn't just polite anymore. Zoe, the chaos queen, pulled out a clear glass bottle and set it in the middle of the table. Time for the classics. Truth or dare? Lila raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? We're 30. "Exactly," Zoe smirked. "That's why we need it more." The game began. Claire confessed she once dated her ex-boss. Riley got dared to text "I love you" to her toxic ex. The booth exploded in laughter and screams after every reveal. And then the bottle spun and landed on Lila. "Dare, dare," everyone screamed. Lila laughed nervously. "Depends on what the dare is." Emma leaned in, pointing toward the bar. "See that guy? Black shirt, drinking alone." Lila turned and locked eyes with the stranger. His gaze was calm, too calm, like nothing in the world touched him. But when he looked at her, it wasn't just looking. It grabbed. "You just need to go up and give him a lap dance. 30 seconds, that's all," Zoe said smoothly. "Nothing nasty, just sexy. You set the limits," Riley added. "You're all insane," Lila chuckled, fingers tightening around her glass. "Layla Rivera, if there's ever a night you need to lose control, it's tonight," Emma declared. Lila exhaled, pushed her hair back, and stood. Each step across the floor was a decision she didn't want to think too hard about. The music pushed her forward. Her eyes stayed locked on his. Damon, Hartley. She didn't know his name, but she already knew his eyes would stay with her. As she approached, he looked up. Calm, smoldering, inviting. "This is just a dare," she murmured, breath thin. "Lucky me," he replied, lips curling. She placed one hand on his shoulder, another behind his neck. The beat slowed. The rhythm pulsed in her chest as she began to move. Slowly, fluidly, not vulgar, but confident. Her body knew what to do, even if her mind was screaming. Damon didn't move. His hand slid to her waist, firm but never greedy. That restraint, it burned. She lowered herself onto his lap, eyes locked on his. His scent, warm spice, woodsy and intoxicating, wrapped around her. His fingers subtly tightened as she leaned closer. His breath grazed her neck. "Careful," he whispered. "I might forget this is a dare." Lila chuckled softly. "The problem is I might too." Their lips hovered. So close. So damn close. And then reality hit. She pulled back, like she'd touched fire. Stood. Breathed hard. "I shouldn't have..." Damon said nothing, just looked at her, amused, curious, patient. Back at the booth, her friends screamed. "You went full out," Zoe yelled. "You just melted this entire bar." Riley laughed. Lila sat, gulped her drink. Her hands shook a little. She didn't know what that was, but she knew one thing. It was the first time in a month her heart had raced. For someone new. Lila thought the dare from last night was just that, a fleeting moment of rebellion, a temporary distraction from Nate, from the betrayal, from all the ways she had tried to be enough, but ended up abandoned anyway. But Damon Hartley didn't vanish like a forgotten dream. The next morning, as she walked into her office, Amanda greeted her with a knowing grin. "Someone sent you coffee. No name, but the note says, 'No decaf, just like last night.' Bold." Lila stared at the rich, dark roast on her desk. Only a few close friends knew she hated decaf. The only other person who had ever heard her rant about it was Damon. She didn't say anything, just took a sip. It was perfect. Later that afternoon, Damon showed up, unannounced. No appointment, no warning. He walked in like he belonged, wearing a charcoal suit and that same unshakable calm in his eyes. "I'm looking for an interior architect for a penthouse on Fifth Avenue," he said, never looking away from her. "I'm hiring you." "There are hundreds of designers in this city," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Why me?" "Because I saw how you command space with your presence, not just your designs. I want that in my home." She didn't know if that was a compliment, a challenge, or a trap, but her heartbeat answered before she did. From that moment, Damon pursued her, relentlessly but respectfully. Every morning, coffee. Midday, small bouquets with notes like, "Smiled yet today?" Evenings, a message, "Made it home safe?" But not once did he ask her out. Not once did he corner her into anything. He just stayed. Present. Patient. Lila had once fallen for a man who showered her in attention and cheated behind her back. Damon was different. No games, no declarations. He simply watched her, like the world disappeared every time she entered the room. One afternoon, Damon invited her to the penthouse to walk the space and talk design. Floor 55, full view of Central Park. When the elevator opened, Lila was hit by the vastness of it. Walnut floors, glass walls, a canvas waiting to be transformed. "What do you think?" he asked, and for the first time called her "you" like it meant something more. "It's empty, but beautiful. I want you to make it warm, like you did with the room that night." "That was just a dare," she replied, attempting humor. "Not to me." His tone was serious. She looked away, feigning interest in the ceiling beams, but Damon stepped closer. 2 steps, then one more. She backed against the glass wall, heart in her throat. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Nothing, unless you want me to." Silence, her pulse thundered, and then his hand touched her cheek, slow, gentle, deliberate. "You make me lose control," he murmured. Lila should have said no, should have stepped away, but instead, she looked up and in one breathless second, their lips met. The kiss wasn't urgent. It didn't ask. It just claimed her slowly, like dusk creeping into daylight. Steady, undeniable, and quietly consuming. Damon kissed her like he was memorizing her. Slowly, thoroughly, with the kind of intensity that didn't need urgency. When he pulled away, she kept her eyes closed. She wasn't ready to leave that moment. "You're fighting this," he said softly. "Maybe," she replied, eyes fluttering open. "But I can't deny. I'm drawn to you." Damon smiled, and she knew that smile would follow her long after she left the room. That kiss changed everything. Lila couldn't sleep. She lay on her side, fingers brushing her lips as if the warmth still lingered, soft, intense, and so real it hurt to remember. She used to think she couldn't feel anything again, that after Nate, her heart had locked itself away from anything remotely close to emotion. But Damon was different. He didn't make promises. He didn't speak in poetic lines. He just touched her like she was a question he'd been dying to answer all his life. And the scariest part? Lila knew that if she kept going, she'd fall. Not like before, blindly and recklessly, but completely, without walls, without safety nets. Still, the next morning, she woke up and became Lila Rivera again, composed, disciplined, logical. She applied her makeup with precision, slipped into a white tailored suit, and went to work like nothing had happened. But the illusion shattered the moment Amanda burst into her office, pale and shaking, iPad in hand. "You need to see this, now." The headline screamed in bold. Lila Rivera, ex of Nate Collins, caught in hotel sex tape scandal? Below it played a shaky, low-res video, a woman who looked eerily like Lila in a hotel room, caught in an intimate moment with a man that resembled Nate. She didn't finish watching. Her stomach turned violently and she gagged at her desk. The entire office froze. Lila stumbled into the conference room, locked the door, kicked off her heels, and buried her face in her hands. Her fingers trembled. Her chest felt like it was caving in. She'd known betrayal before, but this was destruction. Destruction of her career, her dignity, her identity, built over 10 years with sweat and restraint. The first message she received wasn't from a friend. It was from Damon. "Don't read, don't respond. I'm on my way." He arrived 30 minutes later. No security, no assistant, just him. Eyes cold, jaw tight, the look of a man who would burn down the world for the woman he cared about. He walked into the conference room and locked the door behind him. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Layla couldn't answer. She was crying. She hadn't cried in years. But now, in front of him, she wasn't the composed businesswoman. She was just a woman breaking apart. Damon stepped forward, pulled her into his arms. "That's not you in that video, I know that. But the world doesn't," she whispered. "And Nate? He won't say a word to help me. He never protected me." "I'm not Nate," Damon said sharply, "and I won't let anyone do this to you. Not now, not ever." That day, Hartley Group froze all non-essential business. Damon summoned his top legal and media teams. He deployed cybersecurity experts and crisis communication professionals. They traced the original upload, flagged every repost, pressured every media outlet to retract the article. He called 3 of the biggest media houses in New York directly. "You have 12 hours to remove the article or prepare for litigation." His voice was calm, but no one doubted he meant every word. Lila stayed in her office. She refused to go home. The idea of walking into that dark apartment, facing her reflection in the mirror, it terrified her. She wasn't the powerful woman she'd built herself into. She was a target now, exposed, humiliated. Damon texted her every hour. "Have you eaten? How are you holding up? I'm handling it. Just breathe." She didn't respond, but she read every word. 3 days later, the legal team gave their report. The video was a deepfake, expertly edited using AI-generated footage and a body double. Her face was mapped onto someone else's. The movements, the hair, the lighting, all simulated. Artificial perfection built to ruin her. And the source? A media agency with direct funding links to Serena Lee, Nate's current girlfriend. Lila sat in stunned silence. Serena, The woman who once glared at her at a fashion show, who once whispered, "I'm taking back everything you had." Now she had crossed the line from envy to warfare. That night, Lila sat curled on her sofa, wrapped in silence. When the doorbell rang, she didn't expect anything, but when she opened it, there was Damon, holding a brown paper bag and a bottle of red wine. "What is all this?" she asked softly. "Chow mein, dim sum and a night with no work talk," he replied, then looked at her with the kind of warmth that melted every last defense. "If you'll let me in." She stepped aside without a word. They sat on the floor, eating from takeout boxes with wooden chopsticks. No TV, no phones, just quiet chewing and the occasional refill of wine. At one point, she turned and looked at him. "You saved me from a nightmare." He set his glass down. "I couldn't let you go through that alone." She moved closer, rested her head on his shoulder. "Damon, I'm not afraid of what people say about me anymore. I'm just scared one day you'll leave, like everyone else did." He wrapped an arm around her, holding her tighter. "I'm not going anywhere, not now, not ever." That night, for the first time in years, Lila slept peacefully, not because the world was quiet, but because the man holding her didn't need to say, "I love you." He just showed it. The media attack didn't stop after the first article. The video spread across platforms within hours. Lila Rivera trended on multiple sites. Anonymous accounts flooded comment sections with blame, insults, and mockery. Lila was spiraling. She didn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She didn't leave the apartment. Every buzz from her phone felt like another blade to the chest. Damon had said he'd handle it. But she'd heard that before. From Nate, from people who claimed to care, only to vanish when things turned difficult. She wanted to believe Damon. But trust was something she'd lost long ago. But Damon didn't just say he'd take care of it. That very night, he converted one of Hartley Group's internal boardrooms into a crisis response center. Within 12 hours, experts from Boston and Chicago were flown in. Cybersecurity specialists, attorneys, white hat hackers, and digital surveillance analysts. "We're not just protecting her," Damon told them, voice calm but firm. "We're going to uncover who fabricated this and why." 3 days later, they had their first break. The original upload of the video had come from a newly created Twitter account with no profile picture. The account only followed two others, a well-known gossip blogger and the official account of Serena Lee, Nate's new girlfriend. It wasn't proof, but it was a trail. Damon's team dove deeper, decoding the metadata from the video. The IP address had been masked behind 4 layers of proxies, but Damon's top IT analyst used a reverse routing tool to trace the origin to a digital marketing agency, Millionaire Media. Millionaire had worked with Serena 4 months ago on a skincare campaign. Pieces were falling into place. Damon didn't wait. He showed up at Millionaire Media's Manhattan office the next morning unannounced. With him were 2 senior lawyers, a cybersecurity expert, and a private videographer documenting everything. "We are investigating a defamation and identity manipulation case using fabricated media," Damon informed them. "Your agency is directly connected to the distribution point." Elise, the agency director, a woman in her mid-40s, tried to stay composed, but when Damon presented a signed court order for evidence access, along with the traced IP log, she broke into a sweat. She confessed a third party had hired Millionaire to create a deepfake designed to go viral. They had been paid through a shell account, but the billing contact listed was unmistakable: Serena Lee. When Damon told Lila, she sat in silence. She didn't cry, didn't scream, she just stared at the floor, as if even rage had abandoned her. "She always resented me," Lila said finally, "but I never imagined this." "She resents you because she can't be you," Damon replied, "and because Nate never really forgot you." Within 24 hours, Damon's legal team filed a defamation and identity violation suit against Serena Lee. At the same time, 3 major media outlets were forced to publish formal corrections and public apologies, admitting the video was fabricated and their coverage was irresponsible. Public opinion shifted fast. Where Lila had once been mocked, Now, people deleted their posts. Some turned their anger toward Serena. Others quietly faded into silence. Damon never issued a public statement. He didn't need to. His actions spoke for themselves. That evening, Lila sat alone on her balcony. The city lights blinked faintly beneath her, like stars hidden behind too much fog. Fragile. Far away. Damon stepped outside, carrying a folded gray scarf. "You shouldn't stay out too long. It's chilly." "I used to think no one would stand up for me," she said, her voice barely audible. "That when things got ugly, people would just disappear." "You thought I would too?" "I did. But not anymore." He draped the scarf around her shoulders, then sat beside her. "You don't have to believe me yet," he said, "but look at what I do." "I've seen it," her voice cracked. "I see it clearer than I ever have." The next morning, Lila woke up late. Not from exhaustion, but because, for the first time in weeks, she'd slept through the night without nightmares. She padded into the kitchen and found Damon already there, pouring coffee. He was wearing a plain white t-shirt, hair tousled, face softer than usual. "Should I be thanking you?" she asked playfully. "No," he replied. "I didn't do it to be thanked." "Then why?" Damon turned, stepped toward her, and held out the mug. "Because you deserve to be protected. Because you're the woman I choose. Not just when you're strong, but especially when you're not." She took the cup, her hand trembling slightly. But her heart didn't race from fear this time. It was warmth, steady and growing. For the first time, she let herself wonder, if I fall in love again, could it be with this man? 3 weeks after the scandal, Damon took Lila away from the city. He didn't tell her where they were going, just slipped a boarding pass into her hand and said, "Leave the laptop." The seaplane landed on a small, secluded island. No tourists, no cameras, just 2 villas tucked behind swaying palms, turquoise water, and a silence that tasted like freedom. Lila breathed it in. For the first time, the ocean breeze didn't carry pressure, only peace. That evening, beneath warm golden lights and the hush of crashing waves, Damon led her down the shoreline. "I've had everything before," he said, gently tightening his grip on her hand. "Money, power, influence, but never peace." She looked at him, smiling. "And now?" "Now I have you, and I won't risk losing that." He dropped to one knee, and in his jacket pocket he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple, timeless, quietly beautiful. "Layla Rivera, you came into my life like wind and left your mark like a storm. You shattered the old and made me want to start again. With you, every day, please, marry me." Lila brought her hand to her mouth. She didn't cry, not right away. She just looked at him for a long, quiet moment, then nodded. "I will." They kissed under a sky full of stars, the ocean quietly witnessing the start of something new. Later, they lay together on the villa's deck, wrapped in the warmth of each other and the night. Lila rested her head on his chest, heartbeat steady, but thoughts racing. "Ammon," she whispered, "I have something to tell you." "What is it?" "I'm pregnant." Silence. 1 beat. 2. Damon turned his face toward hers, eyes wide, not with fear, but awe. And then came the smile, full, gentle, and overflowing with life. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I'm sure." He pulled her into his arms, kissed her forehead, and held her there for a long, still moment. "You're not just my home anymore, Lila. You're the mother of our child. I couldn't ask for anything more." And beneath a tropical sky, wrapped in salt and wind and the scent of new beginnings, they both knew the wounds of the past had ended here, and a new chapter had finally begun. When they returned from the island, they brought back more than a ring and a little secret. They carried a shared resolve to build a life grounded in kindness, stability, and no need to ever look back. And so, their wedding day finally arrived. They married in late autumn, when the leaves had turned gold and the air carried a gentle chill. The wedding took place at a historic lakeside estate just outside New York. Elegant, but never flashy. warm, intimate. It wasn't a show for the press. No networking guests. Just close friends, family, and those who had stood beside them through the storms. Lila wore a minimalist white gown with a train that skimmed the stone steps as she descended. Damon, in a classic black tuxedo, looked every bit the modern gentleman, composed but with that unruly charm that only belonged to him. When he saw her walking down the aisle, his expression gave everything away: awe, gratitude, love, as though he were seeing her for the first time and fearing it might be the last if she ever walked away. The ceremony was bathed in golden afternoon light. Their vows weren't long, just a few words. Honest, quiet, and raw enough to make half the guests tear up. "I won't promise to always be right," Damon said, eyes locked on hers, "but I promise I'll always listen." Lila squeezed his hand gently and replied, "I won't promise to always be strong, but I promise I'll choose you, even on the worst days." After the wedding, they settled into a townhouse in Brooklyn Heights, close enough to the city but quiet enough to hear children laughing on the street and smell fresh pastries from the cafe down the corner. Lila continued her career in interior design. She opened her own studio, handpicked her clients, and took on projects that inspired her. She never wanted to stop working, and Damon never once asked her to. "The world needs spaces that carry your touch," he'd say whenever he found her up late sketching designs. Damon took on more of the parenting role. He picked up their child from daycare, handled meals, read bedtime stories. Not because Lila asked him to, but because he wanted to. He had never had a father who showed up, and he swore their child would never feel that same absence. And so, a little family was built. Not loud, not perfect, but whole. Every morning, Lila woke up to the smell of Damon's coffee. Every night, she came home to their child's laughter and the arms of the man she now called husband. Life didn't need grand miracles. Sometimes all it took was the right person, at the right time, with just enough love to make the ordinary feel like magic. Lila expected nothing more than a quiet afternoon when she walked into the upscale Manhattan salon that day. She had just wrapped a meeting, and her assistant had booked her a last-minute appointment to prep for an upcoming gala. The floor-length mirror reflected a composed woman in a cream blazer, hair swept into a clean bun, calm, confident. No one would have guessed she had once stood at the heart of a scandal that nearly ruined her. Then a voice, sharp and familiar, sliced through the calm. Well, I thought you'd traded your heels for house slippers at Hartley HQ." Serena Lee, still the same sugary sweet tone, still that razor-sharp edge. Behind her stood Nate, perfectly groomed just like always, but his eyes darted away the second they met Lila's. Lila turned, calm and cool. "Still bitter, even after losing?" "Losing?" Serena scoffed. "Didn't realize getting knocked up to trap a billionaire counted as winning." "Oh, right, you're the queen of image manipulation." Nate stood still, not a word, not a surprise. Lila's hand clenched, not out of hurt, but recognition. Serena was trying to reduce her to the version of herself she used to be. Fragile, defensive, desperate to clear her name. But Lila wasn't that woman anymore. Seems like someone still doesn't know what manipulation really means. A smooth, low voice called from the salon entrance. All heads turned. Damn. He walked in with calm certainty. No raised voice, no anger. Just a perfectly tailored navy suit, cold eyes, and words that cut like glass. "Serena Lee, Nate Collins." He stopped just a foot away. "I'm giving you both a choice. Apologize here, now, in front of staff, customers, and the security cameras recording all of this." Serena laughed. "You think you can make us?" Damon pulled out his phone. A video played. Serena's voice, clear as day, admitting she had hired an agency to spread the fake video. "This is how," Damon said coolly, slipping the phone back into his pocket. Silence fell like ice. Nate flushed red. Serena froze. Damon turned slightly toward Lila. "Forgive them?" Lila tilted her head, eyes never leaving Serena. "No." But I want them to remember this moment, that some mistakes cost more than a lawsuit. They cost your right to speak without shame for the rest of your life." Serena lowered her head. Nate mumbled an apology, never lifting his eyes. Damon took Lila's hand and walked her out of the salon as if it had never been a battlefield. But Lila knew that was the last time anyone would dare call her a homewrecker. From that moment forward, the name Lila Rivera would carry something different. A woman who stood tall, fiercely loved, and never apologized for living her truth. 6 days after the salon encounter, Hartley Group sent out a press invite. Just 40 words, no excessive detail. Time, 10 o'clock IEM, Friday. Venue, Grand Ballroom, Hartley Tower. Topic, truth. And consequence. New York media went into frenzy. At 10 a.m., hundreds of reporters, influencers, legal representatives, and media figures packed the gold-trimmed hall inside Hartley Tower. There were no banners, no flashy logos, just a black podium and 2 empty chairs placed directly under the spotlight. Damon walked out, calm, controlled. "We are here today," he began, "to make one thing clear. Truth can be twisted, but it can never be buried." A massive LED screen came to life behind him, playing a recording of Serena admitting to hiring Lumiere Media, followed by testimony from the agency's director. Then came screenshots of Nate's payment to the intermediary. Hard, undeniable evidence. Damon turned toward the side of the stage and nodded. 2 security guards led Serena and Nate out, faces pale. Cameras zoomed in on every twitch, every flinch. "Kneel," Damon said. Not shouting, not angry, just command. And they did, in front of hundreds of flashing cameras, in front of the world. Serena tried to speak, choked apologies, tear-streaked face. Nate said nothing, his silence, now, louder than ever. Then Damon stepped back and let someone else take center stage. Lila. She emerged from backstage in an ivory dress, soft waves in her hair, no heavy makeup, just the presence of a woman who had survived fire and walked through it standing tall. "Some people climb up by stepping on others," she said quietly. "And some, like me, are pushed down, but still choose to rise on their own 2 feet. The room erupted into applause. First 1, then 2, then hundreds. That night, Lila Rivera trended again, not as the woman in the video, but as the woman who refused to bow. The press hailed her as a symbol of power, pride, and dignity. Old friends who once went silent now returned, not out of pity, but respect. They called her the Phoenix of Manhattan. And Damon? He said nothing, just held his wife backstage, arms wrapped around her. "I told you I'd never let anyone hurt you again," he whispered. "And you proved no one could, unless you let them." 5 years after their wedding, Lila and Damon's life had entered a new chapter, peaceful, full, and far from ordinary. They lived in a white-roofed house tucked in the northern suburbs, surrounded by lavender bushes that bloomed every late summer and the sweet sound that greeted them every morning, the laughter of their 3 children. The eldest, Elio, was 5, curious and obsessed with books. Their second, Ava, was a mischievous little artist who liked coloring all over the walls, and the youngest, Noah, had just learned to walk, giggling every time Lila scooped him up into her arms. Lila continued running her interior design firm. Lila Rivera Studio had grown into a symbol of elegance and bold vision, featured in major magazines and hired to design for global hotel chains. As for Damon, still the CEO of Hartley Group, still ruthless in the boardroom, except at home, where he melted into the role of father and partner. To celebrate their 6th anniversary, Damon planned a family trip on a private yacht. One evening, after the kids had fallen asleep below deck, he led Lila up to the deck. City lights glittered in the distance, their reflections shimmering on the water. No cameras, no media, just them and the sea. Without warning, Damon knelt down, this time not to begin something new, but to renew something sacred. "Would you marry me again?" he asked, his smile soft and sincere. Lila laughed. You know what? What? I should probably wear something loose this time, because she gently placed a hand on her stomach. I'm pregnant again, and it's twins. Damon froze, just for a second, then burst out laughing. He stood, pulled her into his arms, and spun her gently on the deck, like there was nothing more perfect than this moment. Under a sky full of stars, with the ocean breeze dancing through her hair, Damon whispered, "This is our forever." And Lila knew, not all fairy tales begin with magic. Some begin with wounds. But the only thing that matters is they never stopped walking forward.